How do you go from walking out on your boring husband and posting cute couple pics with your new lover to being pregnant, blocked, and holding court papers at the school gate? What happens when the man you mocked as weak and controlling stops arguing, starts saving receipts, and quietly makes sure there is no home left for you to run back to? Can someone like me, who swore I was choosing happiness, really be surprised when he finally handles it properly? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Lenore Van, and people say I threw my whole life away for a man who did not even stay. I think that is unfair. I was a loyal wife for years. I worked at the front desk in a small dental clinic. I kept our home clean. I smiled at family dinners. My husband, Caleb, is an electrician. He likes wires, budgets, and early nights. He said safety was love. I said I needed more than safe. When I started going to the gym, I finally felt seen again. People noticed my new body, my new clothes. Rafe, the trainer, told me I was special, that I could do better than a man who came home dirty and tired and wanted simple food and quiet. I told him my husband did not understand me. I told my mother and my friends that Caleb was cold and controlling. They said I deserved my own happiness. So I left. I walked out on my boring, careful husband and took our daughter between two homes. I chose passion. Then I got pregnant. Rafe vanished. And when I tried to return to my old life, I found out Caleb had already locked the door in a legal way. I still thought I was the main character in my own movie. The morning it really started, I stood in our kitchen and watched Caleb move around like he always did. He checked the stove, wiped crumbs, packed our daughter's lunchbox with the same careful hands he used for wires at work. He asked what time I would be home that night. I said I had a late meeting at the clinic and maybe drinks with Kira, and I added that he should not wait up like some guard dog. He said he just wanted to know if Ivy would see me before bed. I told him he was making me feel guilty for having a life. He went quiet and finished tying Ivy's shoes. Ivy asked if I would read her a story that night. I said I would try, and then I told Caleb that she was learning to be flexible. He said children needed routine. I answered that he wanted a schedule, not a wife. In my head, I told myself he loved control more than me. At the clinic, I sat at the front desk and scrolled my phone between patients. Kira asked why I looked annoyed. I told her Caleb had once again asked where I was going and when I would be back. I said he acted like our street was full of danger and men waiting to kidnap me. She laughed and said he was scared because I had glowed up. I liked that. It made his concern sound small and silly. I told her that maybe I was outgrowing him, that I had changed and he had not. She said I deserved someone who could keep up. That was the day Rafe came in for a cleaning. He walked in with that easy gym body confidence, tank top under his hoodie, headphones around his neck. He asked where to sign in. I smiled a little bigger than normal and pointed to the clipboard. When he sat down, I noticed how he filled the chair. Later, I told myself I was only observing. When he joked about being terrified of drills, I said my husband was the same and acted like he was weak. Rafe laughed and said my husband was lucky. I filed that line away, warm in my chest. After his appointment, he stood at my desk again. He asked if there was a good coffee place nearby. I said there was one near my bus stop. He said maybe he would see me there sometime after my shift. I smiled but pretended to be busy with the computer. Later, in the break room, Kira asked who the fit guy was. I said just some trainer from the gym down the road, then added that he was more awake than my husband ever was. She said gym guys never settle, that they liked fun energy. I liked thinking of myself as fun energy. That evening, back at home, Caleb asked how work was. I said it was fine, and then tested him by mentioning that a trainer from the gym had come in, that he was funny, that he talked to me. Caleb just nodded and asked if I remembered to book Ivy's dentist checkup. I felt offended that he did not act jealous. I said he clearly did not care if other men flirted with me. He said he trusted me. I told him trust was not the same as acting dead inside. Later that week, I used a free trial pass and went to Rafe's gym. I told Caleb I was starting to take my health seriously and that he should be proud. He said he was happy for me and asked what days I would go so he could plan dinners. I said he was already trying to control it and that I would go when I felt like it. At the gym, Rafe greeted me like we had known each other for ages. He asked about my goals. I said I wanted to feel like myself again, not just like a mother. He said he could help with that. He touched my arm to adjust my form. He corrected my posture with gentle pressure on my back. It felt like being seen, like someone was paying attention on purpose. In my head, I turned that into proof that my marriage was broken. In the locker room afterward, I took a mirror selfie in my new leggings, hip turned just right. I sent it to Kira with a caption that said, I was finally living instead of just existing next to a tired electrician. She replied that I looked fire and asked what Caleb thought. I wrote back that he hated everything that did not include him and called my sessions vanity. That was not fully true, he had not said that, but it fit my story better. Back home that night, Caleb noticed the new leggings. He asked how the gym was, if I liked it, if there were many people there. I rolled my eyes and said he could just say he was jealous. He said he only wanted to know if I felt safe walking home after dark from that area. I called him dramatic and said it was not a war zone, it was just a gym. He said maybe he could pick me up some evenings. I answered that I did not want to be checked on like a teenager. In my head, I turned a basic offer of support into another chain. I started going to the gym in the evenings more. When Caleb asked which days I would be late, I refused to give clear answers. I said I did not want to give him a timetable to inspect. He said he needed to know for Ivy's bedtime. I said he was using her as an excuse to control me. At dinner, Ivy asked if I would tuck her in. I told her maybe, if I got back in time. Caleb said in a calm voice that she needed someone there for sure, not just maybe. I snapped that he could do it if it meant so much to him. I acted like I was the only one with needs. One night, after Ivy was asleep, Caleb sat on the edge of the bed and asked if I was happy. I felt attacked. I told him he always made it sound like I was wrong for wanting more. He said he noticed I seemed angry all the time and wanted to understand. I said he was boring, that he never wanted to go out, that all he cared about was work and bills and wires. He listened, and that annoyed me. I wanted a fight so I could say he was cruel. Instead, he said he did not want to hold me back, but also did not want to lose our family. I said if he loved me, he would not make me choose between being alive and being a wife. He looked down at his phone on the nightstand then, like he remembered something. As he picked it up, the screen lit. A small calendar alert slid across the top. It said, Community Center, 10:20 a.m. He tapped it away before I could ask. I still asked. He said it was just a boring appointment, personal stuff. I joked that maybe he finally had a secret. He just said he was trying to learn some things. I rolled over with my back to him, certain he was just trying to make me feel guilty. The next weeks, I decided that if I was going to feel guilty, it might as well be on my own terms. I woke up one morning and watched Caleb pour cereal for Ivy, the same brand, the same bowl, like he had done for years. He asked if I could be home early that night because he had a long job the next day and wanted a calm evening. I said I had to stay late at the clinic and maybe go out with Kira again. I added that he could handle bedtime alone since he liked control so much. He did not argue. He just asked what time I thought I would be back. I said I did not know and that I was tired of reporting to him. Ivy looked between us. She asked if I would see her before she slept. I told her we were a modern family and that sometimes people had busy lives. I said Daddy would be there. Caleb only nodded and told Ivy that he would always be there. That made me feel attacked, even though he did not raise his voice. At the clinic, I told Kira that Caleb had once again turned a simple evening into a drama. I said he made me feel like a teenager who had to beg for permission. She said he sounded controlling. She called him a dead weight on my growth. I liked that phrase. It made me feel like I was moving up and he was stuck. I said he checked on me every time my phone buzzed. She told me to stop sharing my location with him, to take my life back. I told her I already had. Rafe began to stop by more often. Sometimes he came in before his shift at the gym, just to ask about whitening prices or to joke with me. One lunch break, he leaned on the reception desk and asked if I was coming to the gym that evening. I said maybe, if my husband did not chain me to the stove. Rafe laughed and said he could not stand men who tried to tame energy like mine. I let those words sink in. I told myself he saw the real me. One afternoon, he waited in the lobby even when his appointment was over. He sat scrolling his phone, but every time I looked up, his eyes were on me. A patient asked if he was my husband. I laughed and said my real husband would never come near a gym or a dentist, that he preferred his couch and his tools. The patient smiled politely, but I saw a small frown. At the same moment, our manager Liam walked past and glanced at Rafe. Later, Liam asked for a quick word in the tiny break room. He said he had noticed Rafe spending a lot of time at reception and that it might look unprofessional. He said we needed clear lines between work and personal life. I told him Rafe was just friendly and that my husband already acted like a jailer, so work was the only place I could breathe. Liam said he did not need to know about my marriage, only about the clinic's image. He said patients might talk. I left the room feeling judged and told myself Caleb was the reason people thought there was a problem. That night, back in our kitchen, Caleb had spread some papers on the table. There was a neat folder with a label on the spine that said, Household. Inside, I saw lists of bills, dates, and notes about repairs. He asked if we could go through them so he would know which things I wanted to handle and which he would handle. I rolled my eyes and said he turned everything into a project. He said he was tired of surprises and wanted us to be on the same page. I said real love did not need folders. He pointed out that lately I was out more, and he wanted to make sure things like rent and Ivy's school fees did not slip. I twisted that into an accusation. I said he was calling me irresponsible. He said he was not. He just saw patterns and wanted to protect the house. I said he was trying to make me feel like a child. He did not push. He quietly closed the household folder and stacked the papers. As he did, I caught a glimpse of a spreadsheet on his laptop screen. It had dates down one side and short notes. When he saw my eyes on it, he clicked it away. I felt exposed, even though I was the one doing things wrong. Kira convinced me we should go out that weekend, somewhere with lights and music, somewhere Rafe liked. She said I needed to show the world I was more than an electrician's wife. I liked that idea. I told Caleb the clinic had a late team meeting, then maybe a drink. He asked if it was really work or just going out. I said if he trusted me, he would not need to ask. He said he trusted me, but he did not trust every man who talked to me. I called that insecurity and left before he could say more. The club was loud and smoky on the patio outside. Rafe met us by the side entrance. He called me his star client and said, I looked too good for my old life. I pressed closer to him than I needed to as we took a picture. Kira said we should post it in a group story. I let her tag me in a shot where I leaned into Rafe's shoulder. My face looked bright, my eyes alive. In the background, other people laughed and smoked. It felt like proof that I was not the boring one. On the patio, with music pulsing through the walls, I started my favorite story. I told Kira and a couple of her friends that Caleb checked the time every time I came home, that he counted up how many evenings I was allowed to go out, that he hated my gym clothes. I said he acted like a prison guard and still expected me to be grateful. They shook their heads and said that was abuse. I loved that word on my tongue. It made me feel righteous. Rafe stood behind me, hands on my shoulders. He said some men could not handle strong women. I said Caleb just wanted a quiet maid, not a wife with ambition. I said I was the real catch in the marriage. Someone pulled out their phone and filmed us as a joke. I did not care. I wanted the world to see me looking happy and him looking like the past. When I finally stumbled home, the apartment was dark. Caleb was on the couch with the TV off. He asked if I had fun. I said at least someone made me feel alive. He asked what time it was. I snapped that if he wanted a clock, he could buy one instead of watching the door. Ivy had left a drawing on the table of 3 stick figures holding hands under a house. I ignored it. He went to bed without fighting. On his phone, face down on the nightstand, the screen suddenly lit and showed part of a notification before fading. I saw the words, meeting, personal and a time, Friday, 9:45 a.m. He picked up the phone and cleared it. I asked what he needed a personal meeting for. He said he was learning how to deal with things in the right way. I laughed and said no one could teach him how to keep a wife. The next day at the clinic, my phone buzzed while I checked in a patient. A notification popped up at the top. I had been tagged in a short video from the club, my face close to Rafe's on the smoking patio. At that exact moment, Liam walked past the front desk and stopped, saying he needed another quick word. Liam asked for a quick word at the front desk, just as a new club video tag of me pressed against Rafe flashed across my phone screen. I sat in the tiny break room with Liam the next day, still thinking about the club video. He had his serious face on, the one he used when talking about infection control. He said some patients had mentioned seeing me online with the trainer, who kept waiting in our lobby. He said it could look unprofessional and might hurt the clinic's image. I told him people needed to relax, that it was just nightlife, that my husband was the only one making it weird. Liam said he did not care what my husband thought. He cared what patients thought. He suggested I keep my private life more private. I walked out feeling like he had called me dirty. In my head, that turned into more proof that Caleb's dull energy was leaking into my job. I told Kira every detail. I said Liam had basically tried to police my happiness. I said it was because Caleb had already been in here with his gloomy face, making everyone feel sorry for him. That was not true. Liam had not said that, but it made sense in my story. Kira said I should stop talking about Caleb at work. She said if I wanted a new life with Rafe, I should just take it and stop half measures. The words new life felt bright and sharp. Rafe loved the drama. When I told him what Liam said, he grinned and said that meant we had chemistry if people thought it was too much. He said men like my husband wanted to cage women like me because they were scared we might see our true options. I liked that line. It made me feel like some rare bird. I told him I was tired of living in a house where my laughter bothered people. He said if things were so bad, I should stop talking and start doing. A few days later, we all had dinner at a family restaurant for my mother's birthday. Long table, cheap candles, children running between chairs. Rosa sat at the head, happy to be the center. Caleb sat near the middle with Ivy, cutting her food into small pieces. Rafe was not there, of course, but a part of me wished he could see this scene, how dull it all looked compared to the club. Rosa raised her glass and thanked everyone for coming. Then, she said something about her daughter needing more joy in her life. I took that as an open door. I stood up and said I had been trying to live more, to wake up after years of being half asleep. I said some people at this table did not like that. I did not say Caleb's name, but everyone looked at him. He kept his eyes on Ivy's plate. My aunt asked what I meant. I told them Caleb hated my gym time, my nights out, my friends. I said he checked the clock every time I left the house, that he acted like a prison guard. I said he made me feel like a bad mother for wanting anything outside of dishes and bedtime. I made my voice just shaky enough to sound hurt. Rosa shook her head and said her daughter deserved to feel alive. Kira, who had joined the dinner as my friend, said some husbands liked weak wives and did not know what to do with a strong one. Someone down the table joked that I should show them the famous gym guy if he was so much more alive. I laughed and said that at least Rafe told me I was amazing and did not look at me like a broken appliance. I did not look at Caleb when I said it, but I felt his body go still beside Ivy. Another cousin lifted her phone and said she had to record the speech because it was too wild. That made me even bolder. I said I was tired of being kept like a houseplant, watered just enough not to die. Later in the evening, I went to the restroom and bumped into Shirley by the sinks. She asked quietly if I meant everything I said. I told her I was done pretending I was happy. I said Caleb tried to own me. She looked at me with sad eyes and said she had never seen her son own anything but responsibility. She asked if I had thought about how Ivy would feel if we broke the home. I said children were flexible and that it was better for her to see a happy mother than a quiet one. In my head, I called Shirley weak for caring more about peace than passion. When we got home, Caleb put Ivy to bed and then came into our bedroom. He asked if I really believed he had treated me like a prisoner. I said if he had to ask, then he was worse than I thought. He said he had worked long hours, fixed every broken thing in the house, stayed up with Ivy when she was sick, and tried to listen to me. I told him that was just doing the bare minimum and that any man could do that. I said I needed someone who matched my energy. He sat on the edge of the bed and said he did not recognize the woman he had married. I said he was just upset because for the first time I had options. He went quiet again. Then he stood up, went to his side of the room and opened his bedside drawer. The sound of the drawer sliding shut when he was done was sharp, like something closing for good. When he left the room, I walked over and peeked. Inside, under his socks, there was a small notebook and his phone charger. On his phone, lying on top, the screen lit for a second. A preview showed a muted call from a number labeled private. He picked it up as I watched and walked into the hallway to answer, closing the door gently behind him. I told myself he was being dramatic. I messaged Rafe and told him I was done with Caleb's emotional abuse, that I wanted to start fresh. Rafe replied that maybe it was time. He said he did not want to be the side story forever. He asked what I would really choose if I had to pick. I read that line again and again. The next day, as I stood at the kitchen counter, I saw a new red circle on the wall calendar. Caleb had marked a date 2 weeks away and written in neat letters under it, drop off. I asked if we were getting a new appliance or something. He said he was just organizing. On the table nearby, the household folder sat stacked with 2 others, one unlabeled and one with a blank spine. I flipped the top one open and saw more neat lists, some with initials, IV, LV, CV, and dates next to them. I shut it quickly when I heard his key in the door. He came in holding Ivy's hand. I smiled at them both and felt nothing but impatience. That night, after another short argument about my gym time, I packed a small bag for Ivy and a larger one for myself. I told Caleb I was leaving for a few days to clear my head. He asked if this was about the trainer. I said it was about everything, about him, about feeling dead. He asked if I was sure I wanted to blow up our family. I said he had blown it up long ago with his rules. He did not stop me. He just sat down on the edge of Ivy's bed and listened to her talk about school while I hauled my bag to the door. As I stepped outside, I looked back. Caleb stood in the hallway, one hand on the frame. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He took it out and glanced at a notification before slipping it away. I saw only one word on the screen before it vanished. Follow up. It made my chest tighten, but I ignored it. I told myself he was finally learning there were consequences for failing a woman like me. A cousin raised her phone to record my speech about leaving my jailer at the restaurant just as Caleb's screen later lit with a message titled Follow Up while I dragged my bag to the door. Rafe's apartment was smaller than our house, and it smelled like cheap air freshener and protein powder, but for the first few days I told myself it was freedom. His couch was half broken, the kitchen was crowded with shaker bottles and unwashed pans, and the bed squeaked when we moved. I said it was real life, instead of Caleb's stiff little routines. I kept repeating that in my head so I would not think about Ivy's empty bed back at home. Rafe worked odd hours, early clients at the gym, late DJ sets, naps in between. While he slept in the middle of the day, I scrolled my phone. I watched the clip my cousin had recorded from the restaurant, where I called Caleb my jailer and talked about leaving. The comments in the family chat were mixed. Some sent laughing emojis, others did not respond. I focused on the laughing ones and told myself that meant people understood. At first, Ivy stayed with Caleb until things settled. That was the phrase I used. I said it was only for a while. I told Caleb during one tense call that he was selfish for not letting her stay with me at the new place full time. He said the new place did not even have a second bed yet. I said he was punishing me. He said he was thinking about school mornings and quiet nights, not punishment. I called that manipulation and hung up. One evening, Rafe came home sweaty from the gym and threw his bag on the floor. I picked it up and joked that my old life had made me too tidy. He laughed and said I could use those skills here. I told him I was serious about building a new life with him. He smiled and said we were vibing, and that was enough. The word vibing sounded thin suddenly, but I pushed that thought away. A few weeks into this new life, I started feeling sick in the mornings. At first, I blamed the greasy food we ate after his DJ sets. When I missed my period, the little cold fear at the base of my neck grew. I bought a test from the pharmacy on my way back from the clinic and took it in Rafe's tiny bathroom, staring at the cheap tiles. The second line showed up fast. I stood there shaking, then felt a strange rush. A baby meant roots, meant a story, meant power. I told myself it would finally force everyone to take me seriously. Rafe, Caleb, the whole family. I walked into the living room holding the test like it was proof of my importance. Rafe was on the couch scrolling. I said I had news. I told him I was pregnant. He froze with his phone in his hand. For a moment, his face was blank. Then he said he was not ready to be a dad. He asked if I was sure. I said tests did not lie. I added that this baby would change everything. He said the timing was bad, that my marriage was messy, that maybe we needed to think about what it meant. He asked quietly if I was certain it was not Caleb's. I felt slapped. I said he knew very well when things had started. He did not look convinced. We went to the hospital for a first scan. In the cafeteria afterward, I sat across from him, stirring my drink. He stared at the table. I said we should tell people, that we should start planning a bigger place, maybe closer to the gym. He said his work was unstable, that he did not make dad money. I told him love could build a home. He said love did not pay rent. I said he sounded just like Caleb, and I meant it as an insult. He did not fight back. He said he needed time to think. A week later, he started staying out more. His car, which used to sit crooked in the building lot, was always parked facing the street, nose outward, like it was ready to go at any second. Messages from him came slower, even when he was only a few blocks away. When I brought up baby names, he changed the subject. When I asked if he would come to the next appointment, he said he would try, then did not show. Meanwhile, Caleb and I had to figure out Ivy's schedule. We met at the park playground once because I said it was neutral. Ivy ran between us, climbing and sliding. Caleb sat on the bench, watching her. I sat on the other side, arms folded over my stomach, which was still mostly flat. Ivy came over and asked why we did not live in the same house anymore. I said adults sometimes needed space. She asked if I lived with the gym man now. I felt heat rise in my face. I said he was just a friend helping me. Caleb did not say anything for a moment. Then he told Ivy that both parents loved her very much and that grown-ups were trying to make good choices. I snapped that some of us were trying to live instead of sleepwalking. Ivy asked if the baby would live in 2 homes too. I said we would see. Caleb's jaw clenched, but he kept his voice gentle when he told her to go down the slide again. After that, I decided to go back to the old house for a talk. I told myself Caleb would be forced to see reason now that I was pregnant and miserable with Rafe's foggy commitment. I walked up the driveway, noticing small changes. The car was freshly washed, parked straight. The curtains I had chosen were gone from the front window, replaced by simple blinds. Mr. Havel watched from his porch across the street, pretending to fuss with his plants. Inside, the kitchen felt cleaned in a way that did not include me. On the counter were 2 mugs, but they stood far apart instead of side by side. A new sticky note sat near the fridge. "Bring forms," written in Caleb's writing. I frowned. On the table lay 3 binders: household, bank, utilities. The utilities one looked thicker than it should, full of neatly filed pages. I flipped it open. There were rows of account numbers, dates, notes. It made my chest feel tight. I shut it fast when I heard Caleb's steps. He walked in wearing his work jacket, keys in one hand. On the ring, I saw a new, unfamiliar key. I asked if he had changed locks. He said he had changed some things for safety. I said he was being dramatic. He replied that he was being careful. I told him I was pregnant. I expected him to break apart, to beg me to come back, to offer everything. He looked surprised, then sad. He asked if the baby was his. I laughed, said he could not be that stupid. He went very still and said, in that case, he hoped the child would have a stable home, even if it was not under his roof. I said he was cold, that a real man would still step up. He said he would always step up for Ivy, and that was his focus. I said I wanted to come back, that Rafe was stressed, that it was too cramped and chaotic. He asked if I wanted him or just his house. I said that was a cruel question. He said it was an honest one. Then he said we were not ready to live together again, not after everything, and that he could not pretend nothing had happened. I told my mother later that Caleb was heartless. Rosa said he was proud and would soften when the baby arrived. She said he was not strong enough to really let me go. She told me to keep the door open and play it smart. I liked that idea. It made me feel like I still had control. But the cracks kept widening. Ivy drew a picture at school of 2 houses with a stick girl between them. She showed it to me during another park visit and said this one was Daddy's house with routines, and this one was Mommy's house with the TV on. She asked again where the baby would sleep. I said the baby would be where Mommy was. She asked if Daddy would visit the baby or just her. Caleb watched our conversation from a short distance. His face looked older. That evening, back at Caleb's house for a quick drop-off, Ivy ran inside to grab a toy she had forgotten. I stood in the hallway. The guest room door was partly open. I saw the bed neatly made, not like a spare, but like it was being used every night. On the desk in that room, next to the binders, lay a single USB stick with a date written on it. Beside it, his laptop was open to a clean desktop with 2 big folders, Archive A and Archive B. As my footsteps sounded in the hall, he stepped in front of the screen and closed it. He said he had to take Ivy to a school event soon and asked if I could give a clear time for my next visit instead of sometime. I said he was turning our child into a schedule. He said she needed predictability now more than ever. I called him a robot. He did not respond. He just helped Ivy put on her shoes and walked her to the door. On the porch, Ivy turned and asked, in that small, serious voice, if the baby would get to live in both houses, or if one house would be just Daddy and her. I opened my mouth with some big speech ready about love and freedom, but my throat closed. Caleb watched me and waited. Behind him, the thick utilities binder and the new key on his ring caught the last of the daylight. Ivy asked if the new baby would have 2 homes too, just as I noticed the thick utilities binder on the table and a new key glinting on Caleb's keyring. Rafe's apartment started to feel smaller every week. My belly grew, but his patience shrank. One morning, I woke up alone on the squeaky bed. His side was cold. His gym bag was gone. On the coffee table, where we used to drop takeout boxes, there was only a ring of dust and a single, forgotten shaker bottle. I told myself he was just busy with clients. When I checked my phone, there were no new messages from him. I texted him first. I wrote that the baby had kicked and that he should feel it soon. No answer. Hours later, a short reply came. He said he was slammed, that things were complicated, that he needed space to think. I stared at the words. I told myself space to think was normal. I replied that I had left my whole life for this and that he could not back out now. He did not answer. At the clinic, Kira asked how Rafe was taking the news. I said he was shocked but happy. I did not want her to see the cracks yet. She asked if Caleb knew. I said he had seen my stomach. He was not blind. She asked how he reacted. I said he was cold and asked if the baby was his. I left out the part where that question had made my stomach twist. Kira looked unsure for the first time. She said everything sounded messy. I felt judged, so I changed the subject, telling her Liam was still being weird about Rafe in the lobby. She nodded but did not laugh like before. The next hospital visit, Rafe did not show. He sent a message an hour before the appointment saying he had a last-minute client. I sat alone in the waiting area, looking at couples and their soft faces. Inside the scan room, the nurse asked if the father was coming. I said he was busy and that I was strong enough alone. The words tasted like metal. Afterward, I went down to the cafeteria and bought a coffee I did not really want. As I sat, I saw Caleb and Ivy walk past the big windows. Ivy held a small folder from her checkup. Caleb carried her backpack. They did not see me at first. For a second, I watched them like strangers. He knelt to fix her shoe, said something that made her smile. Then Ivy spotted me and waved. I waved back. They came inside. Caleb asked if I was okay. I said I was fine, and that he did not need to check. He said he had seen my name on the appointment board and wanted to say hello, nothing more. Ivy asked if the baby was okay. I said yes. Caleb's eyes went to my belly, then back to my face. I told him Rafe was just late. He did not correct me, even though by then it was clear Rafe was not coming. He told Ivy it was time to go. Before they left, he said he was making sure all of Ivy's routine stayed steady, that this was the most important thing. I snapped that he cared more about routines than people. He just nodded, as if confirming something to himself. Days later, Rafe's messages stopped completely. When I went back to the apartment after work, I found some of his things missing. A few shirts gone, some shoes, his favorite headphones. The bedroom dresser drawers were half empty. The car that usually sat crooked in the lot was not there. I called him. The call did not even ring. It went straight to voicemail. I checked his social media. I was blocked. In my contacts list, his name had turned into just an emoji somehow after an update. It made me feel like a joke. A faint smell of printer toner still hung in the room from some papers he had printed weeks ago and never left. Now those pages were gone too. I told myself this had to be Caleb's fault somehow. Maybe he had scared Rafe. Maybe he had talked to him. I needed someone to blame. So I looked for Caleb. I found him at the supermarket on a Saturday. He was in the snack aisle with Ivy, letting her pick crackers. I pushed my cart up fast. I said we needed to talk. He looked at my belly, then at Ivy. He asked if we could speak later without her hearing hard things. I raised my voice. I said he needed to grow a spine and do the right thing. I said my lover had abandoned me, and now I was carrying a child alone. People nearby slowed their carts. He answered quietly, saying he was sorry I was in pain. He said he would always support Ivy, but he would not pretend about the baby. He said that unless someone showed otherwise, it was not his. I called him heartless. I said a real man would fix what I had broken. He said a real man took care of his child and did not lie about who they were. Ivy clung to his leg, looking up at us. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen. A reminder slid across the top. Library, 1:15 p.m. Meeting. Personal. He cleared it fast. I asked if he was going on dates now. He said he was going to a meeting about information, not romance. I mocked the word information, said he thought he was some lawyer now. He did not correct me. He finished his shopping and told Ivy they would see me at the park later, like they had planned. After he left, a stranger in line behind me said quietly that my daughter was watching everything. I almost snapped at her, but I kept my mouth shut. I grabbed whatever snacks were closest and paid with my hands shaking. Kira came over that night. She saw the half-empty apartment and my swollen eyes. I told her Rafe had just vanished. No note, no call, nothing. She was silent for a moment. Then she said maybe he had not wanted this level of drama. I felt betrayed. I said she had told me to chase happiness. She said she had not told me to burn down my house. I asked if she was taking Caleb's side too. She said this was not about sides, it was about Ivy. That word again. I went back to the old house one evening, unannounced. The living room felt even more organized than before. On the coffee table sat 3 binders lined up. Home, auto, bank. A small clipboard lay beside them. At the top of the visible page, in bold, was a single word: statement. Before I could read more, Caleb came in. He picked up the clipboard and turned it over. I said he was turning our life into a file cabinet. He said he was making sure nothing important got lost again. I told him Rafe was gone, that I was alone, that the baby was real, that I could not manage without help. I expected him to soften. He did not. His eyes were sad, but his voice was steady. He said he was already taking care of the house and of Ivy. He said he would not step into a lie by pretending another man's child was his responsibility from love. I called him cruel, said he was leaving me to drown. He replied that I had jumped into deep water after he warned me about the rocks. Rosa started to panic when she saw Rafe had disappeared. She came to the house during one of my visits, talking fast about how we had to undo things. She said Caleb was still legally my husband, and that he could not just walk away. She told him that in the kitchen. He listened with a blank face. He said he was not walking anywhere. He was standing very still and putting things in order. She said he was cold. He answered that feelings had run the show long enough. That night, after Rosa left, I stayed behind while Ivy played in her room. The hum of a small machine came from the guest room. I pushed the door open. A shredder sat by the desk, a small pile of slim white strips in the bin. The binders were back in their places. On the laptop screen, I saw a small cloud icon with the words "File uploaded successfully" before he clicked it away. I said he was obsessed, that normal people did not live in front of spreadsheets. He said some people ignored facts until they were written down. In the kitchen, I went for one last big scene. I told him he had a chance right now to fix everything. I said if he took me back, I would be loyal this time. I said we could raise the baby as ours and no one had to know. I promised to stop seeing Rafe, as if that promise meant anything now. I painted myself as a lost woman who had learned her lesson. It sounded good, almost even to me. He leaned on the counter, looking tired. He said he believed I was scared, not suddenly noble. He said he could not build a life on a lie again, not for himself and not for Ivy. I accused him of using paperwork and plans to get revenge. He shook his head and said this was not revenge, it was safety. He said he had taken advice and was going to handle everything properly. The word properly made me laugh in his face. I said he sounded like a robot, like some judge. I said feelings were what mattered. He said feelings had already broken enough and that the next steps would be clear, not shouted. Then his phone on the counter buzzed. The alarm banner on the screen read, "Paper drop 3:50 p.m. The sound was small in the quiet kitchen. I pointed at it and demanded to know what it meant. He picked up the phone, silenced the alarm, and said it was just a reminder that I would understand soon when I saw things written down. He told me to make sure I read everything carefully when it came. I suddenly felt like the floor had shifted under my feet. He said he would handle everything properly, as the phone alarm labeled paper drop 3:50 p.m. buzzed between us on the kitchen counter. 2 weeks later, I went to Ivy's school early, belly out front, ready to play the brave mother. I planned to hug Caleb at the gate, cry, and say we should raise both kids together. Parents waited in groups. Children rushed out. Ivy ran to Caleb first. I moved toward them. A man in a jacket stepped in front of me, asked my name, and put a thick envelope in my hand. He said it was a divorce petition with temporary custody and housing orders. Caleb said he would write about Ivy's schedule only, then walked away holding her hand.